Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Norris here. New episode, got a new album. Go through a few songs, 10 seconds each song. Break down how I feel about the album. I'm gonna give it a rating, just like I do with all the other episodes. For this episode, I'm actually gonna do Shabazz Palace's Robed in Rareness. I was actually planning on doing his newest project, Exotic Birds of Prey. That's the newest project that he's released so far. Maybe I'll do it like another day. The only thing is, I went through both albums. The only thing about that one, it's slightly too experimental. It's not enough rapping on it. Like, it's hard to critique an album that's only beats for the most part and maybe like 20% rapping. The thing is, it's a good project and a really good album. I actually enjoyed the album, even though it's mostly instrumental and maybe like 20% rapping. For me to critique the album, it's going to be very difficult for me to critique something that's just like beats the whole time. I just think it's just way too experimental for me to react to it. It's not for this segment. So Robed in Rareness, which is his second most recent album, the album before Exotic Birds of the Prey, has way more rapping and way more traditional hip-hop songs on that project than on his most recent one. So I decided to do his 2023 release instead, Robed in Rareness. More rapping on it. It's less experimental and there's more rapping on it. So it's just going to be far easier to critique that album. Robed in Rareness, released in 2023. Okay, so October 27th of last year, that's when he released it. Once again, Shabazz Palace's. It's supposed to be a duo. One rapper named Ishmael Butterfly. He is a old school rapper, very famous rapper from like the early 90s, late 80s. He was the most famous with this group. He's a lead rapper of the group Diggable Planets. Very famous group from back in the day. Very similar to A Tribe Called Quest. Not really similar, but like sort of the same sound. They were one of those groups. He's been dropping solo projects ever since those days, and now he's kind of like made a new name for himself in a sense. Kind of transformed his whole style that he would use under the name Butterfly with Diggable Planets. Now with Shabazz Palace's, I think he just goes by Ishmael, his like actual like government name. I think he just goes by that name now. But Shabazz Palace's is supposed to be a group with him being a rapper, working with a producer. Producer's name's Tende Morer, and I think they work with the beats together, but I think he's like the main producer under the name Shabazz Palace's. Make experimental music for the most part. It was just a huge reason why he doesn't get talked a lot often amongst like the number one or like the top 10 rappers that you see today. Lyrically, not really on the same level, but he can be at times. His style is very experimental, you know what I mean? It's not like JPEG where it's like super difficult to listen to. At times it can get to that. That's probably the one other rapper you can probably compare him to nowadays, you know what I mean? You compare his like absolute newest sound now, you could probably compare him to JPEG. Out of any producer / rapper that's in the game now, I think he's better. Shabazz Palace's, they actually released, as I was saying earlier in this video, they released an even newer album. I think it's called Exotic Birds of Prey. Like I was explaining, the newest album that they released is just far too experimental. Not enough rapping in it for me to critique. It's just going to be very difficult for me to critique an album like that, when this is like mainly for hip-hop albums. This newest album that they released is just like, it's almost like another genre, you know what I mean? It's just too much instrumental going on. So I decided to go back, Robed in Rareness, much more like hip-hop, much more rapping going on in it, so it's going to be a little bit easier to critique that one. So I'm going to go through a couple of songs, a few songs, a snippet of each song. You guys get like a good example of like what this album is and how it sounds. Afterwards, I'm going to give you guys a summary of how I feel about the album, like my whole reaction towards the album. I'll also give you a rating. That should be the video. So we're going to get right into the songs. So this one is called Binoculars featuring Royce the Choice.
They gon' honor me. All of my jury is singing a harmony. You think again if you think about harming me. Life gon' test you and stress you. Struggle will bless you. Life is my pleasure, I'm special. I make it.
So this next song is called Woke Up in a Dream featuring Lil Tracy.
Crack the window, taste the breeze behind 50 cents. Styles is flavor. fragrance. He ain't never played the risk. Yeah.
This next song is called Cinnabon. Oh yeah, this one's featuring LeVar the Star. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. So this next song is called Gel Bait, featuring Geechee Suede.
Trolling on the internet, talking on, factoring all kind of lies, trafficking and bullshit. Fuck y'all, fuck your mama, fuck your bitch ass dad. Fuck all these bitches. Fuck, I hate my guts.
Alright, this one's called Hustle. Hustle Crossers. Sorry, Hustle Crossers.
Lost inside a dream. One and only you, and I know what it means, but is it a scheme? I gotta lean and put it all on the top of the beat, let them know it's me. Did everything I touched.
Alright, first of all, I really like the features on this album. This album was very, very well made. The features really helped. I don't like how it was just 7 tracks. That's the only problem. I think if he made it like 10 tracks, I would have gave it a much higher rating. I really like the visualizers that they used for each of these songs. I think that's pretty cool. I gotta figure out how they're making this, but like the visualizers are impressive. Watch it yourself because like it's impressive, and it definitely makes the songs even better. Ishmael, man, this guy, when he was under Butterfly, I mean with Diggable Planets, he was nice, you know. Like I was saying, the Diggable Planets sort of reminded me of A Tribe Called Quest. Ishmael is kind of like Q-Tip the Abstract. They didn't really sound the same, but in terms of how they constructed their verses and the way their voice sounded with their verse and how just everything sounded, like their beat selection, that was what made me think they were very similar, you know what I mean? Just their approach on how they construct their music and how they construct their verses. Ishmael is definitely one of the greatest rappers of all time. I think I have him on my my 104 list, and I think he transformed his style over the years like a whole bunch. Like I'm pretty sure he's in his 50s now, so like he's still rapping like this is like, it's pretty impressive, you know what I mean? It's pretty cool the fact that his style has transformed over the years, from the days with Diggable Planets up until now with Shabazz Palaces. Very cool group, you know, like they're taking experimental hip-hop and turning it into like a whole nother thing, kind of bringing it to a whole nother level. Like JPEG Mafia, he's kind of bringing it to like another level, because JPEG is doing the experimental stuff and he's bringing it to the mainstream world, where a lot of his music and his videos are getting like millions of views, which is, you know what I mean, that's impressive. I think Ishmael be able to do the same thing if he worked with the right rappers. The features he has on this album are very impressive. They're all the right features. They really make the song even better than what they are. His decision to pick these rappers were the right decisions. I think they suit the beats very well. The way their styles are different from what Shabazz, or I should say Ishmael, does. He made a really good decision on picking those specific rappers to be on those specific tracks. The beats are very experimental, man, but in a good way. Honestly, I usually like experimental beats, but they gotta sound good at the same time. They can't just be all over the place and wacky and just made to sound different. You gotta also make them good at the same time, you know? Or else they're not even experimental beats. They're not even beats. You gotta call them something else, right? This guy did an excellent job at making the instrumentals experimental and also making them sound good at the same time. Also making them sound accessible to other people at the same time, which is not easy to do. That's why you hear a lot of beat makers that are in the game right now, the most famous, even like friends or family members that you know in your life that maybe make beats, and the sound that they're trying to go for is a sound that is just super generic, and you know, a sound that you'll hear in a lot of beats that you'll hear on the radio. A lot of producers try to go for that sound because it's playing it safe instead of trying to do something experimental, trying to make something that no one's ever heard before. Maybe like 10 people listen to it compared to the beat that's getting thousands and thousands of plays. So I think Shabazz Palaces did an excellent job at creating these experimental beats in a way where everybody can enjoy them at the same time. It's not an easy thing to do, and they executed it perfectly on this project. Now the lyricism, man, I think the lyricism is just at the same level as the beats, bro. This is a good one, man. I think everybody's got to listen to this album, man. I think this album is far more impressive than I thought it was going to be. Even though I thought it was going to be impressive just because I know Ishmael's catalog and what he's capable of. He's a hip-hop legend. Multiple decades. You know what I mean? Not just the 90s and the 80s. This guy's killing it nowadays too. He's killing it right now. One of the best lyricists, one of the best spitters in the game right now. Even though he's in his 50s. I think he's out-rapping a lot of the young rappers that you guys are hearing today. You gotta really listen to his lyricism. The features on the album, like Lil Tracy, LeVar the Star, Old Finesse. You gotta really take in the metaphors that they're saying, because this isn't just a like experimental project. You gotta do a bunch of drugs and you gotta do all this shit just to like understand what message they're trying to push out. This album is good for the fact that everybody, the casual hip-hop fan, can relate to it, but more so they have a great understanding of what message is being pushed out. And a lot of times experimental beats and songs can get boring too. I feel like they did a good job at making the music experimental, the lyrics, the beats, just how everything's put together, and also make it entertaining at the same time, especially with these visualizers. I think these visualizers are impressive. I think every check mark in terms of making the music different, introducing a different sound to everybody, and at the same time making it entertaining enough where a large amount of people can enjoy it at the same time. No matter what type of person you are, you can relate to a lot of the things that they're saying and a lot of the sounds that they're putting together in the beats. Just have like a full understanding of like what's going on. And when all of that happens, it gives you a chance to enjoy the music a little more than what you would than the way you would think you would enjoy it. It's not your traditional generic sound that you'll hear in the club or on the radio. You know what I mean? They still were able to make an impact through their lyrics and through the production through this album. I just like how the album was put together. All the messages in the song, all the subliminals, what it represents. It's the perfect album to be dropped at this day and age, 2023, 2024. The way rappers be making their music nowadays, I think definitely what the hip-hop world needed. It's like a breath of fresh air. I think it's definitely the best project I've heard so far with this segment. This album here, I think I'm gonna go with a 9.6 out of 10. A lot of you guys might think I'm crazy. This high of a rating to this type of album, an artist that like no one's ever heard of. Apparently he's an old rapper from like the 90s, and he's supposed to be washed up. He's like, you know what I mean? Why is he still making music? What? He's in his 50s. Like no one knows who he is. Each of these songs have maybe like the highest like view count on this album is probably like 5,000. I think on Binoculars it has the highest amount of views. You get what I mean? Like you guys probably think it's crazy for me to give such a high rating to an album that like nobody might even care about in the next like year or two. Hear me out. This guy is an absolute legend. Diggable Planets, man. Like if you're a hip-hop head, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like he's the leader of Diggable Planets. This guy is a real musician, a real artist. Definitely the best album I've heard so far this year through this segment. Number one album so far. 9.6 out of 10, man. I'm not changing it. It's like, yo, this is pretty close to a damn classic. Like I would have gave it a 10 if it had like maybe 3 or 4 more songs that were maybe as good or better than the rest of the album. So if this was like a 10-track album or 11-track album, those like last 3 or 4 songs were like just as good as the rest of the album, it would probably be a 10. Like I'm not gonna lie, maybe like a 9.8 or like a 10, because this is the best music I've heard so far, bro. Like it's not even like 2024 album too. This is a 2023 album, so that makes it even more impressive. Yeah, man. Shabazz Palaces, Robed and Rareness, man. Give this album a listen, bro. 9.6 out of 10, bro. Shabazz Palaces. But like the latest album that he has, bro, like just it's too experimental for me to react on this segment. But it's still good. It's still really good. He needs to come up with more albums like Robed and Rareness though. Like if he puts more rapping on it, I'm telling you, man. The features are tough, bro. Like he put some nice features in there.